And there we are. We're
Here
live. We are live. Really quick, before we get into everything today, if we can get just a quick little heads up in chat as to how we sound, if everyone can see us okay, and then we can, I guess we can get kind of rolling into it. Maybe some folks can give us just a little feedback really quick. I know there's a lag. I know there's a delay. We can hang out for just a second here, Alex.
Sure. Yeah.
While we're waiting, really quick, hopefully everybody can hear us, but how's your day? How's your day today?
I feel like I've been kind of waiting around to do this, and then my day will start.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, great. Everybody in chat, we got some comments rolling in. Sounds great. Looks great. Awesome. Fantastic. Yeah. Well, your day is going to start a little bit late then, if your day starts after this. But good. I'm glad that you're doing well. Today's been busy for me. I finally finished painting my house.
Nice. Congratulations.
Yeah. Well, painting is always one of the best things to do on a Saturday, but yeah, it's finally done. I've only been trying to get it done for like a month, but it's finally done.
It's quicker than most.
And now the wife's happy. So,
There you go.
All right. Well, I guess we can kind of roll into things. Welcome everybody to the live CASAA Advocacy Update podcast. Thank you all for joining us. Everybody on Facebook and on YouTube. Thank you guys for all being here. Much appreciated. I'm Logan, and you all know Alex. Alex has a bunch of great legislation for us today. Fantastic legislation for us today, don't you, Alex?
Yeah, just super great.
Super great.
Well, really, I mean, this we're going to go through this at lightning speed. I checked the kind of event schedule for the coming week and didn't really see anything of huge consequence coming up. Doesn't mean it's going to stay that way, but the next week or two looks right now to be relatively kind of slow. So take it with a grain of salt and pay attention because things can change. Speaking of things changing, we are hearing that the bill in Alaska, SB 45, this is a tax bill. I forget the rate at the moment, but the word I'm hearing is that this may be amended or is being amended to include a flavor ban. It would also require vapor retailers or manufacturers to secure a $10 million bond, in the event that like product defect or something like that. I'm not exactly clear on what the bond is all about, but liability is certainly an issue there. So we're keeping tabs on that, and we'll update our engagement as soon as we know more. To Connecticut very quickly. I think we might have touched on this last week, but keep hearing from sources that the standalone bill, which is SB 326, and this is a flavor ban, is actually, there's some second guessing going on here, and that lawmakers are looking at the hit to revenue that Connecticut would take, and really looking at revising the bill. When things like this happen, people should be on guard for it being something that exempts menthol, but may still go after flavored vapor products. So that it sounds kind of promising, but it may turn out to not be all that promising. So still waiting for further word about when would be a good time for consumers to get involved in this. But right now there's a lot of back and forth about whether or not Connecticut wants to give up that money. This is different from the governor's proposal. The governor's proposal, I believe, also contains a flavor ban and is part of the budget. So that's kind of its own messy process. But we're following both of those, and I'm checking in with Connecticut people regularly to see, whether the timing is right or, where the bill is in discussions. So we got Alaska, we got Connecticut. I attended a hearing briefly in Rhode Island this week. There's a preemption bill or an anti-preemption bill there. For those who are sort of new to the word or the concept, what Rhode Island has now is state level preemption for tobacco regulations, meaning that municipalities, counties, cities, they can't enact their own, for example, tobacco sales restrictions or banning smoking or vaping in certain places. Those are decisions that are left up to the state. We agree that tobacco regulation is something that needs to happen at sort of the highest level of government. Ideally, this is something that the federal government is able to do, and you have uniformity across all states. We don't benefit from having a patchwork of regulations. It creates chaos and leads to things like activists being able to say, hey, you've got chaos at the local level. We need to enact a state law, which is exactly what they are trying to do. Former Governor Gina Raimondo's flavor ban is a failure. And so I think they suspect that it will be overturned at the state level, and they want to take that back to the local level to create that patchwork of regulation so that they can then come back to the state and say, hey, we need a statewide flavor ban now. So we support state level preemption for tobacco regulations and spoke out against the bill. My brain got ahead of my mouth there, and I think we're done with the legislative stuff.
Wow. Wow, you said lightning fast and you meant it.
Yeah.
We talked about the preemption stuff last week. So if anybody wants a really detailed discussion about preemption, last week's discussion, me and Alex went through quite a bit of it. So that would be a good source to check out. But well done on that legislative roundup, sir. Not all the greatest of news, not all the fantastic news, but definitely stuff that everybody needs to be aware of and keeping an eye on for sure.
Yeah. So we'll get right into the news. First of all, I apologize to you, Logan. In the rundown, I skipped over a really important story that I want to make sure we highlight before we get into the other stuff. Here we go. I need to fix things here. Here we go. There we go. The one thing I skipped over was this article in Philanthropy, the Chronicle of Philanthropy, read, of course, by people who do philanthropy. So this is significant, the fact that this was published in this publication. And it goes through the controversy with Michael Bloomberg essentially paying off the FDA in the Philippines to enact a nationwide ban on vapor products and heat not burn. We discussed this last week with the INCO campaign and the news release. And
my new favorite 2 words, philanthropic colonialism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just wanted to bring everyone's attention to that. We've pulled out a lot of quotes here to give you an idea of kind of how critical this is, and a very important thing, I think, for people to read. And if you want to learn more about the overall perspective on Michael Bloomberg sticking his tentacles in Southeast Asia and other countries, or low and middle income countries, this is certainly a good. It's not really an expose, but it's a good bit of information for people to be familiar with. And of course, Michael Bloomberg dropping $160 million to Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids to ban vapor products. And I just wanted, there we go. Here we go. Here's some of the funding. And just the size of the organizations that we're unfortunately up against. Tobacco-Free Kids has about 140 staff. Just by comparison, CASAA has 1. And they have a budget of $34 million. I'm not even going to talk about ours because it's depressing. This is millions of dollars that these groups are able to spend every year, donated by people like Michael Bloomberg, and other funding from other sources that is hard to track down. But Danielle Jones has done a very good job of displaying that. If anybody wants to see those videos, they are available, I believe, on our YouTube channel. So again, just wanted to draw everybody's attention to that because I skipped over it in the rundown and I don't want to let that slide away. So scrolling quickly back up to the top here. We're back at state level legislation in Minnesota. There there is an article, of course, that we link to in our post here about Clearway, Minnesota. They're sort of the main anti-smoking, anti-tobacco, anti-nicotine group in Minnesota. Originally, they were funded until 2021, this year. And so they are going back to the legislature and of course, demanding that they get more funding. And I guess because they believe that their programs are effective. Of course, we know differently in Minnesota that the tax enacted on vapor products discouraged something like 32,000 people from quitting smoking. And of course, Minnesota is looking at more taxes this year, and you can find all the details on that and how to get engaged on our website. If you are in Minnesota, please check these two calls to action out. Sorry. So anyway, yeah, the Clearway Minnesota is arguing that the state needs to give them more money, and there are a few bills here that would do something like that. Essentially, Minnesota, like a lot of other states, doesn't spend a whole lot of money on tobacco prevention or education. It doesn't spend a big enough portion of what they get from master settlement agreement disbursements and tobacco tax revenue, which is a complaint that I think both sides of this debate have lodged at lawmakers. Certainly in any area that's looking to tax vapor products, one of our arguments is the state collects millions of dollars already. Why isn't more of that money going to fund these programs that every supporters of this tax bill claim are so effective? If they are indeed that effective, they should be 100% funded. I think
Minnesota only spends like 3% or so of the funding that they get, the revenue that they get on education, on prevention, on things like this. So they want more tax, more money to use towards something that they're spending very little of their money on already.
I'm just highlighting that section in the article that kind of breaks it all down. So yeah, if you want some more detail on that, the link is on our blog post and will be at the bottom of this video to learn more about what's going on in Minnesota and how they do or don't spend their tobacco revenue. Yeah. And of course, as we mentioned, one of the rebuttals to giving these folks any more money is the results of the 95% tax on nicotine in Minnesota. And one of our friends replied to the tweet with this article explaining just that. There is actual adult research from the National Bureau of Economic Research looking at the effect of the tax. And they, of course, concluded, I don't know if I'm going to be slick enough to highlight it here, but 32,400 people were discouraged from quitting smoking as a result of the tax. And so, yeah, more details on that, of course, if you would like to pick up on this article in Market Watch. Let's see, we got the calls to action. And I'm going fast. You're on a time limit. We're all.
I'm on a time limit today, everybody. So I just want you guys to know there's a legitimate reason why Alex is like on fire right now.
So moving right along. This one, which we linked to in the Wayback Machine. Sorry, this was paywalled. If you've used up your one free article from Barrons. How the big tobacco giants can survive the last smoker. This is all about, it should be the last person who smokes. Thank you very much. This is all about the possibility that by 2050, smoking is completely out of style and no one wants to buy a cigarette, which is, I mean, depending on where your optimism lies. I honestly think within the next 5 to 10 years, the truth is going to be driving the conversation about vaping. I would love for it to happen sooner. It's possible that as we see products getting authorization from FDA, depending on what those products are, we'll start having a more honest conversation about things. But in the interim, we're stuck with all of these kind of notions of tobacco disappearing simply because people are told not to smoke, and they're told where they can smoke too. So the interesting thing about this, of course, is this little section right here between 2004 and actually kind of 2009, but it won't snap to it on the graph. This is, of course, prior to the housing crisis, which we know drove smoking rates up a bit. People smoke more in crisis. We're seeing that now with COVID-19. But the plateau happened before all of that. And many of us will point to that and say, this is kind of where traditional tobacco control strategies kind of ran their course. They don't have much value anymore because you can only tell people to just say no so many times before they stop listening to you because it doesn't work. So one of the points
rates in Australia are a pretty good example of that for a long time, very much just plateaued, regardless of campaigns and the just say no mantra. So yeah, there's definitely a point. I agree with you. There's definitely a point where those strategies kind of, fall off, and you definitely have that dedicated population of smokers that, just say no or quit or die or whatever. Those tactics just don't work.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard it at every turn, right? We get it from our family, we get it from our doctor, we get it from strangers at the grocery store. You should quit smoking, and it's kind of, don't tell me how to act. That's kind of where I'm at with it.
That's how I was.
I appreciate your concern as long as it's concern, but just don't tell me how to act. I'll figure it out.
That was me 100%. I was like, whatever, I'm gonna smoke. I'm going to smoke until I die. That's where I got to. It was essentially like, don't tell me, I'll just smoke until I die. It's fine.
Pretty much. So the other thing about this article is I like of course, this is an investment kind of thing. This is not investment advice. I am not a financial advisor. But yeah, sort of going through, I think Altria has a bit of, they're sort of leading the way in terms of the various tobacco company brands in terms of putting the message out that they're transitioning to smoke-free products, which I think looks very good to investors. It looks like the company is adopting the new technology and will be ready to move into a smoke-free world. And we can have, there's other conversation about that later on, whether or not we really want Altria and Reynolds to be the ones who are doing that. However, from a harm reduction perspective, we've said this many times, and I think anytime that tobacco companies come up, we should probably offer this. When we think about deploying reduced risk products very quickly and putting them in front of the most eyeballs, it's the tobacco companies that already have that infrastructure. It's a level of access that the vapor industry has not achieved. It is really wonderful to be able to go into a specialty vapor shop and receive that one-on-one attention, but it doesn't translate very well to a convenience store and the products that people find in convenience stores. So at the very least, getting these products out in front of people who smoke, the tobacco companies are perfectly situated to do that and do it quickly. It's the speed at which that happens that's being affected most by the regulation, just like what we're saying about Minnesota and what the study is showing about Minnesota, that heavy regulation is going to slow down adoption and keep people smoking longer. So don't think for a second that shareholders at big tobacco companies don't see that. And of course, every time anything negative comes out about vaping, in terms of regulation, typically the tobacco companies' stocks rise. Again, not financial advice, not a financial advisor. Do your own due diligence. So
also just a key point there, the incumbent tobacco companies are well positioned, like you said, getting these products into convenience stores. And from a harm reduction view, that's meeting people where they're at, right? If you're a person who smokes, you're right there to go get your cigarettes. maybe you're not, necessarily trying to quit or inclined to quit, but that vapor product sits right there next to your pack of smokes. There's a much better chance that you'll go, oh, hey, I'll give this a shot. And I know countless people who bought an e-cigarette from a convenience store or a gas station, and it was enough to get them through the doors of a vape shop. So
that's exactly my story. I had a little bit of a push because I saw someone being successful with switching. And it took me like a week or so to finally get up the courage to buy something different than a pack of cigarettes. But I saw the Cigalikes sitting at the front counter, and the marketing says, one of these is equivalent to 2 packs of cigarettes. And I said, whoa, $10? That's going to save me, $7 or $8. How could I not try this? So, it was totally on a whim, honestly. I mean, yes, I had some motivation to quit smoking, and I had seen someone using the products, but actually getting to that point where I'm going to lay down $10 for it was just kind of like, okay, I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, me trying my very first e-cig in 2011 or so was on a whim at a gas station. There was a display, for Enjoys or whatever they were, and I bought one on a whim. Bought a pack of cigarettes, and I bought one of these just out of sheer curiosity of what the product was. So,
yeah. So more of that is certainly better for public health. But another sort of point that is raised in our blog post is that as long as people continue ignoring the effect that the availability of vapor products have had on smoking prevalence, then we're not going we're just not having an honest conversation about this. And then I brought up sort of the same graph, but with the CDC flavor on it. I got to share my screen again. So this more, I think, clearly highlights that period of time that between 2005 and 2008, actually smoking rates did not decline. And then this is the part that everybody seems to not be paying attention to, this 2012 and forward, where you can clearly, like if I were to be able to draw a trend line going up and compare it to this, you can see that smoking prevalence declined substantially after 2013, which is when most of us, well, not most of us, but it's when a lot of us picked up the product. 2013 was when I made the switch in February.
And this is all pre my time in the vapor space or vaping, but I have plenty of friends in this space who, kind of call like that 2012 to 2014 era, quote unquote, the golden age of vaping. Products were coming out very regularly. Innovation was happening very quickly, and a lot of people quit smoking in that era. That like you just showed on the graph, there was a huge, like it just starts plummeting right there.
Yeah, and to answer the question from Apathy Miller, who's asking if e-liquid companies are trying to get into convenience stores, I don't know of any specific brands that are trying. I mean, certainly, I think it's reasonable to expect e-liquid manufacturers to partner with closed system devices so that their liquids are what is in the device. But I think we've seen that. I don't know specific brands.
I don't know if I've seen it specifically, I guess, in that fashion. But I do know there have been a number of e-liquid companies who have gone into the quote unquote disposable. I hate the word disposable for these products, but into the disposable space. So they're making their own closed disposable systems.
But nothing like, I don't know of e-liquid manufacturers trying to sell bottled e-liquid in a convenience store. Not out of the realm of possibilities. Wouldn't it be great if we lived in that world where you're on the turnpike or something and you have to stop at a service plaza to get a new bottle of liquid? You're probably going to pay a lot extra for it because it's on the turnpike. But I would like to see that for, the experienced people who are using refillable devices, but also if you're like me, then I think you'd rather just visit a local shop. So that's going to be one of those business calculations that they're going to have to make. I don't really see open systems being sold at convenience stores.
I've seen it, but not in any kind of chain. There was a gas station here in town, locally owned. It has since shut down, but a few years ago, while they were open, they did have one glass cabinet kind of tucked over in the side with a few open systems, a few e-liquids, and then like a whole bunch of CBD and other things kind of thrown in there. So you might see that in C stores. But I highly doubt you're going to see it in any major chains. You might see it in a locally owned gas station or shop like that. And yeah, it might be like what I saw, one little glass cabinet kind of tucked over to the side has 3 or 4 products in it. So I wouldn't hold your breath on e-liquid companies, selling a lot of bottles in 7-Eleven or something like that.
Yeah. But if they can, what a great place. So
what a world it would be. What a world it would be.
So moving right along, some of the other news this week is the reappointment of Vivek Murthy to the position of U.S. Surgeon General. For anybody who was vaping back during the Obama administration, then you'll remember Vivek Murthy, who published, I believe it was the first report on e-cigarettes and youth. I'm obviously not showing pictures of any announcement or press release about his reinstatement. Instead, I would recommend that people go read Clive Bates' thoughts on this. He has a pretty good breakdown of not just sort of the missteps of the Surgeon General, but a good way to kind of approach it critically with these 5 questions here. And this, of course, has since been updated with a much longer post. Oh, wait. And while we're there, we've got here's the graph again, rapid and accelerating decline, 2014, look at that.
Yeah.
We got down to 15%. We're down below that now. And I think actually he's got a little bit of a line drawn here. I'm not quite sure what that. Oh, it looks like that's just sort of a trend. But right around 5%, that is actually the goal of tobacco control folks is getting smoking prevalence below 5%. That sort of officially takes it out of epidemic proportion. I'm so sick of that word.
Yeah, you and me both.
Yeah. So in any case, I'm not going to spend a lot of time, giving an overview of Clive Bates's post. Just encourage people to go read that. If you would like more perspective on all of the damage that Vivek Murthy can do for the next 4 or 8 years, hopefully not that long, then Clive Bates has some really good perspective. I would really appreciate it if people like Vivek Murthy could abandon the propaganda and really look at the science here. Of course, this gets all the more complicated when we start talking about young people vaping or smoking. But one of the things that Clive Bates is not pulling any punches about is the fact that vapor products used by young people who would otherwise be smoking is indeed a form of harm reduction. No company should be out there saying, hey, kid, come try our vape products. But I think there is a much more critical conversation that we all need to have about what resources are actually available to young people who do pick up smoking, and of course other potentially harmful behaviors. And it's just we just all have to come to a point where we acknowledge that wrapping kids over the knuckles and just no, don't do that and sticking their nose in it just is not working anymore. And I think the tobacco control side really needs to have a deep look at what they consider to be empowerment. Of course, something not featured I'm going all kinds of off script this week, but something else not featured here was I think it might have something to do with the campaign for tobacco-free kids roast that's coming up. Or I read it somewhere else, but essentially it sounded to me like their version of empowerment was as simple as rallying kids against tobacco companies. Like, we're going to identify a common enemy. Y'all get to come together as a group, and then you're empowered because you're friends. Like that.
Oh, that's it.
That's not empowerment.
That's the entire level of empowerment there.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So anyway, read Clive Bates's thoughts on this. I guarantee you won't be disappointed, and it may take up quite a bit of your time. So there are 2 posts.
Yeah, I like to make an entire event out of reading the counterfactual. I'll sit down with a nice cup of coffee. Clive Bates is always just a wealth of knowledge and great points that he makes. Can be a little long-winded though, but there's a lot to say. There's a lot of nuance to the conversation, and Clive does a fantastic job at getting to that nuance.
Yeah. So that herein ends the regular scheduled portion of our podcast, and I will move right into more off-script things, starting with
off-script stuff.
A press release that came out this week from the Drug Policy Alliance, and this is a bit of a complicated conversation, and this is why I saved it for the last half hour, 45 minutes here. So one of the things that the Drug Policy Alliance and cannabis activists are very, very concerned about, and have been for many years, is this idea that as markets are opening up, that incumbent players and big companies in the tobacco and beverage and medical cannabis space are in themselves in the best position to get the licenses early and sort of corner the market.
Sure.
And we're going through this conversation right now in New York. We're looking at a bill to legalize marijuana. It could be happening this week. I think if it's going to be part of the budget, it has to happen in the next 3 days. Our budget is due April 1st. And fortunately, Governor Cuomo has lost a bit of his power. And so the legislature is sort of going their own way here. So hopefully that turns out well. But in other parts of the country, and of course at the national level, there is always going to be this opportunity that incumbent players have that. They have that privilege. They have the money. They have the market share. And so they can easily move in and get these licenses very quickly, unless lawmakers intervene when they write the enabling legislation for the marketplace and give some preference to people who are most affected by the drug war. And so this, I believe in it. I have not gone over this with a fine-tooth comb, and other people have picked out some of the finer points here that sort of veer potentially into ganging up on tobacco companies, which is very popular to do. And I think from the nicotine side of things, I think I always hope that the drug harm reduction people are being very careful and not subscribing to, of course, the drug war tropes that have been used recently with tobacco use. I don't think it's all that beneficial to rely on a boogeyman, just like what we were talking about with, Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids. The idea of empowerment is beating up on tobacco companies. But the really, really, really important thing that I want to point out here is, of course, the same things that Drug Policy Alliance are cautioning against with legalization of cannabis are also have been affecting the vapor space, specifically vapor, for many years now. And this is a feature of the regulation. It's not a bug. It's not like they didn't think about this. It is a feature of the regulation to consolidate the market with a few players or a handful of players. Regulators don't like complexity. They need just a few people to deal with. So if they only have to deal with Altria, Reynolds, Imperial, Fontum, whoever, they're fine.
Right.
That's a half a dozen companies. Cool.
Yeah.
We can inspect all of that. But if you've got 1,000 manufacturers out there, FDA doesn't have the human power to accommodate that, which is also why we're seeing states stepping in and picking up that responsibility of doing federal tobacco enforcement. So getting to the, I swear I'm going to get to the point. The vapor industry, should be driven by the small independent businesses. These are regional players. These are folks that quit smoking and decided to go into business in order to share these products with their communities. The availability of vapor products as a viable alternative to smoking happened because individual companies got involved, small companies, people with like 20 grand. That's what they had to start their business, if that. And they became successful. They grew a brand, they grew a community, and it's a community of people who are saving their own lives thanks to these products. That's what enabled tobacco companies to get in the game. They got in the game late because they're big companies. They move like a huge steamship. They're not nimble like the small entrepreneur. And so it took all of the effort of all of these small businesses and all the individual consumers who demanded better products in order for tobacco companies to feel like the playing field was right for them to come in. And unfortunately, the regulation is just going to hand it all back to the incumbent tobacco companies. At least that's what we've been concerned about for many years. I am generally not the biggest optimist in the world, but I will burn that candle to hold on to a little bit of hope that we will see open system products approved within the next 5 years. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It may not happen for 2 years. We may not see any vapor products approved for 2 years. That's the track record with FDA. Hopefully they're getting quicker at this. But it is entirely possible as long as FDA sticks to their mission that we see things change a little bit. So I want to make sure that this doesn't come across as just bashing cannabis advocates for invoking big tobacco or big alcohol tropes. It is a real concern, and it is not limited to cannabis. And I think, if anybody can do a service to the vaping community and the tobacco harm reduction community, it's, I think, drawing attention to this point that the cannabis people are making, which is, of course, the people most affected by smoking, the people most affected by all of the coercive policies that are failing millions of people. Those are the people that should have first crack at the licenses for opening up their businesses. Those are people who should have first crack at getting their products approved. Unfortunately, that whole approval part, like we said, a feature of the Tobacco Control Act is that it is extremely expensive and extremely difficult to get all the way through the approval process. Then you have to do the post-market surveillance. You only get this, this authorization is temporary. FDA can revoke it when they want, when they can show that you're not doing whatever they expect. So yeah, it's a huge mess on the tobacco and nicotine side of things. And I just personally would love for more attention to be paid for the people who really built this industry. While we are on the topic of drug policy reform and so on, I've got 2 letters from members of Congress. Really quickly go back between the 2 of them here. So 30 members of Congress wrote to the Biden administration. If you did or didn't catch the news, I think it was last week or maybe the week before. The Biden administration, because of federal policy, either furloughed or fired. I think it was like half a dozen staffers. There were others who were. Yeah. What was it?
Like 5 or 6.
5 or 6. Yeah. So half a dozen staffers were fired and several others were required to stay home and work. And this is based on, I think they said there were some insurance issues. It's policy. It's just, it's it's something that they didn't really, they feel they didn't have any wiggle room. And of course, cannabis advocates are calling out the Biden administration. Of course, our new vice president admits that she smoked marijuana as a young person. And of course, she can work in the White House.
Did she get a resignation letter? Did she, no? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't think so.
So, the law applies to some people, not to all.
For thee, not for me. Depending
on your status, I guess, is the best way to say that. This is a long list of 30 representatives. The full letter's here if you'd like to read it. But what I found interesting and what I wanted to do was see how many people signed on to this letter also signed on to this letter. This is amazing. And there are, of course, I think about a half a dozen representatives who signed on to both. One, of course, is arguing that the hiring and firing policy of the federal government with regard to smoking cannabis is anti-scientific, is totally antiquated, and should be done away with. The other letter is demanding that the FDA ignore the science with regard to flavored vapor products. For those who haven't read it, I had highlighted a little bit on a different document.
Alex, I think there's a word for that. I think it's hypocrisy.
Yes, that is hypocrisy. So
I believe that's the word.
Here is the ask: deny any pre-market applications for flavored e-cigarettes and other flavored tobacco products, which, by the way, will include nicotine pouches, which are going to have to go through this whole PMTA process as well. Nicotine pouches, snus, any new smokeless tobacco products, all of which are less harmful than smoking, orders of magnitude less harmful than smoking. But these 40 Democrats are totally against the science that might support that, the science that actually is supporting the need for flavored products. So I'm not going to show you my notes, and I'll just go back to my notes quietly and tell you these are the representatives who signed both the pro-science letter and the anti-science letter. Adriano Espaillat, New York's 13th district. Bonnie Watson Coleman, New Jersey's 12th district. Eleanor Holmes Norton, the representative sort of from the District of Columbia. Eric Swalwell, former presidential hopeful from California's 15th district. Jan Schakowsky, Illinois' 9th district. Mondaire Jones, New York's 17th district. Steve Cohen, Tennessee's 9th district. And Ted Lieu, California's 33rd district. These are folks who can't quite decide whether or not science matters. So if you live in any of those districts, feel free to send them a message and let them know that there's plenty of science supporting the need for flavored vapor products in order to help people make up their mind to switch to a safer product.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. It's really frustrating.
It is. I mean, it is, absolutely.
I really don't have a unique or particularly well-developed or educated point of view in all of this. I don't have a master's of public health. I'm not a lawyer. I haven't really done government relations or lobbying or any of that. So if I can see the hypocrisy here, surely somebody who's run a multi-million-dollar campaign to be a member of Congress can figure this out. Surely their constituents can see this. But we'll see.
I mean, we would hope so. Gosh, if you and me can sit here and call out the hypocrisy, lowly Alex and I over here, then hopefully somewhere along the lines we have some lawmakers that can also see the hypocrisy in that. And it's one of these things. I mean, the process that we're going through, the PMTA process, Congress was urged to do this, right? And then now we're having these same groups urging Congress not to do this.
Yeah.
You know, isn't this what you wanted? Was this whole process for approval so we didn't have the quote unquote wild west of tobacco products and all these things going on, this whole process? And now we're urging Congress to say, hey, you know, all that science we wanted you to do, don't do that.
Yeah. Well, so I got a little confused there. I was going to say that the idea of consolidating the market to just a few players wasn't necessarily something that was discussed publicly. It's something that's been written about, and it's again, it's not really part of the campaigning. It's something that the tobacco companies, I think, are their hand in all of this was aggressively negotiating for. Exemptions for their products, but also they saw a benefit to signing on to this because they realized that it would protect them,
Sure.
that it would protect them from competition. So we can say that there's a whole lot of science talk that went into making the Tobacco Control Act, but that sort of goes away when it gives way to the financial considerations of incumbent tobacco companies, which is one of those compromises that both sides, I think, felt they had to make in order to get anything like this passed. You do, as a lawmaker, have to consider the stakeholders that are going to be affected by this. Unfortunately, Congress misidentified the primary stakeholder as the tobacco companies when, tobacco-free kids and all of those groups, their stakeholders are children. And so the folks in the middle, you and me, really got left out of this consideration. And I don't think there was any serious consideration given to how difficult it would be to accept innovative products like vaping that could save millions of lives. Arguably, it's an oversight, but you can also say that really just insulating tobacco companies from competition is kind of the net result here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Fantastic. This has just been great.
So
lots of hypocrisy there, though.
I have one more thing, and we're actually we're a bit ahead of schedule, so I guess we've got more time for Q&A. I did actually, I'm not tooting my own horn. Kristen prompted me to toot my own horn. So thanks, Kristen, for reminding me that I was quoted in this article from CStore Decisions. This is all about a rise in popularity or a rise in demand for smoke-free options like nicotine pouches. Of course, my quote here that, vaping is sort of capturing the imagination of lawmakers all over the country, but laws are being written in ways that they just gobble up all of the tobacco products. So when you see, if nicotine pouches are something that you enjoy, when you see flavor bans, keep in mind that depending on how it's written, the flavor ban may include those products as well. We're seeing them referenced as alternative nicotine products in a lot of places. I think, I don't know if the New York bill says nicotine pouches or alternative nicotine products, but just some keywords to look out for in the legislation if you are going over bills that are banning flavors. The other thing I wanted to point out here is in the picture. So you'll notice, if you look closely, and for those who are listening at home, we are looking at a picture of the tobacco power wall, as it's called, and this is all smokeless tobacco products. And on the end here, we have the nicotine pouch display, and it looks like they've got some Velo, some On, some Zyn. There's other versions of Velo down here at the bottom.
Yep. The newer Velo products, yeah.
Yep. The point I wanted to make here was, look how bright and shiny. You can't see this at home, I'm sorry, but just imagine it's a light blue. There's some light blue graphics and white bright white container that's holding all of the Zyn products. I went to SnoozeCon in Chicago a few years ago, and the gentleman from Swedish Match sort of debuted this on a slide. And the point was, of course, that the marketing conveys that sense of this is a cleaner product, it's brighter, it's going to stand out next to all of the traditional tobacco products. Ideally, you're placing this display in the middle of all the cigarettes. Mm-hmm. So if you're like me, and when you go into convenience stores for the past several years, you've probably been looking looking for where they put the vapor products, where the smokeless tobacco is, and so on. And it's usually kind of stuffed down into the left or right. You have to hunt for it. And so, this is, again, one of those sort of convenience stores, tobacco companies, the whole supply chain, the retail network, they have the ability to promote these products more aggressively and actually help people make the decision to switch away from cigarettes. And I think, this is one of those things. Maybe this is the role that we play as a consumer organization in pressuring companies to more aggressively market these products to people who smoke. This is a really simple thing that retailers can do to put smoke-free products front and center, for people who are smoking. So that wasn't actually discussed in the article, but I did just want to point that out since we have this nice stock photo of convenience store shelves.
If I was to walk into this shop looking for any smoke-free product, whether it be chew or dip or snooze or pouches, my eyes are going to go to the brightest, cleanest, nicest looking things first. And so if those products are tucked down in the bottom, more often than not, that's where I see a lot of those products, is towards the bottom of the shelf or in the corner or something like that. I might walk in, I might not even notice them. I might just go in and grab my pack of cigarettes and never even see those products down there. So you're right. That's a big thing. Getting those products up and in the view of people who smoke is crucial. And I think, it's one of those things where when Altria and Juul had their whole thing go on, that I kind of rallied behind the idea of Juul's being right there at the end of Marlboro's. That was something that I was like, this is a really great thing. Mm-hmm. People, however you feel about that investment, the money, Altria, whatever, those products being right there for everybody to see, for the smoker who goes, oh yeah, I'll take a pack of Marbs. Oh, wait a minute. What's that? That's fantastic. We need more of that.
Yeah. And I think ultimately it would have been, may still be a good thing for the entire category. Yeah. Much like what we're seeing now with companies that feel confident they're going to get through PMTA, companies who are sort of taking up that responsibility for doing enforcement. One of the reasons why they're going to do that is because they need to protect the sort of authorized parts of the category from potentially bad actors who aren't going to follow the regulations or aren't going to follow the rules. So they understand that bad activity can drag down the reputation of the entire category. Sort of inversely, it's true that I think presenting these products as a more enjoyable alternative to smoking and featuring them prominently where they're sold can elevate the reputation of the entire category.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. For sure.
So,
hot. I was going to say, I won't swear, Julie, I promise. Hot dang. How about that? Hot dang, Julie. That was some really good stuff. We've got a few minutes here before my time is up this week. Which I appreciate Alex just breezing through everything this week. But if we've got any questions in chat before we wrap things up this week, now would be an excellent time to do so. And I also, really quick, just for the podcast listeners out there, I forgot to mention last week, but for any podcast listeners out there, these episodes, if you don't read the descriptions, these episodes are available on Facebook and on YouTube on the CASAA pages. So I just wanted, before I forgot that, because last week I was like, man, I forgot to cater to the podcast listeners and let them know. So I want to make sure that we got that in this week. Do we have any?
I'll just jump in and say for the YouTube folks, smash that like button, destroy the subscribe button, and if you want to know when we go live, click that notification bell. Click the bell, and I usually tell people to just full on punch their computers when they click that like button, but please don't actually punch your computer. I guess if we're kind of waiting on any questions or anything that might roll in here in the last few minutes, I wanted to take an opportunity on a personal note to thank Alex for something that has been life-changing for me. As we see Alex over here, he is standing. He is always standing. Last week I was sitting, he was standing, and we had a conversation a little bit later on about standing desks and standing workspaces and getting up out of your chair. So I immediately went over to Amazon and I bought myself one of these little contraptions. It's like a standing desk thing. Revolutionary, man. Absolutely revolutionary. And I just want to thank you for this because it has changed my entire workspace flow. And when I get done, I can stand here for a few hours. I might sway, I might whatever, but I don't have that get out of my chair after a few hours and my back. And I'm like, and then you got to go walk it off. Like this past week, me standing here working has been the best week of being at my computer in a really long time. So I just want to thank Alex for that. And anybody else out there, if you need to stand up, you should be standing up here and there anyways while you're at your desk working. But getting one of these is, I would support your decision 100%. Getting a standing desk. I think it's revolutionary. Yeah, unfortunately, I got to a point where I was using my standing desk all the time because I think if human beings have a time limit on how long they can slouch throughout their lifetime, I think I exceeded it.
You think you've hit it already?
And I'm only 45. I cannot sit and recline for any extended period of time. Like my back starts to hurt. It feels like I can't breathe too well. And sometimes I get a headache. It's a mess. So either I've got some deeper underlying health problem or I've just been a slacker for too long. So now I have to stand up at my desk all of the time, but I do feel better.
It's been really great. Like, I just don't feel like for me, it's the long sitting for a long period of time and that stiffness when you get up and your back and you're just you feel it in your legs and you're like, oh my God, you just want to automatically sit back down. Now I don't have that. Now I'm just I just walk away from my computer and I don't feel sore, or tired or anything. I'm alert, I'm up, I'm working, and then I can just walk away. And it's not I don't even have to come in and pull my chair out or do this song and dance over by my desk. I just walk up, man. I'm here. I'm ready to go. Just like that.
Well, for all the people who find themselves working from home, we haven't heard it a lot lately, but a couple of years ago, there was a bit of a campaign to let everybody know that sitting was the new smoking. So
yeah, sure.
Doesn't mean you have to throw your computer out. You can just get a standing desk and do a little harm reduction.
There are safer ways to be at your desk for prolonged periods of time. Absolutely.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely. We need to start an organization about standing up. Harm reduction for your computer and workspace. Stand up. Maybe we can do a little campaign or something there.
No, I think they really just need to reallocate all of the tobacco propaganda funding and put it into helping people get active. Maybe that's better in a non-coercive, non-judgmental way. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, since we just had that whole conversation about standing desks, I will just make my NASCAR reference for the day and say that they turned Bristol Motor Speedway into a dirt track this weekend, and it's the first time that Cup cars are going to be racing on a dirt track in 50 years. So,
historic race, huh?
Yeah, cool. We're breaking all kinds of barriers here. So I'm super excited about that tomorrow, and I'm really glad that we're doing the podcast on Saturday, so I can do it uninterrupted.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, we used to do the podcast, pre-recorded podcasts. We would do them on Sundays, and there were a few episodes where me and Alex would open up with some NASCAR conversation. I am not the NASCAR guy. I am not the race guy. I am not. So a lot of times I'll just cheer for whoever Alex is cheering for, but I liked this from chat from Dyer thing. Something sitting free kids. That's going to be the new. I think we should just take that and roll with it. Just something sitting free kids. So SSSFK.
Vaping is the new standing. There you go. Exactly.
Yeah, there you go. Vaping is the new standing. Perfect. Awesome. All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for this week. I apologize to everybody that this show is a little bit shorter, that we're kind of wrapping things up right now. I got to pick my kids up from a birthday party, you guys. My little ones are at a birthday party. So it falls on me to be the chauffeur today. So that's what I'm headed out to do. But thank you guys, everybody who's in the chats right now in the live stream. Thank you guys for all tuning in. Again, this will be available on the respective places. If you're watching it on YouTube now, there'll be a replay on YouTube. There'll be a replay on Facebook as well. And then I will be turning this video into a slightly shorter audio version that will be available on SoundCloud and wherever you tune into your podcasts. Alex, thank you so much, man, for all of that today. I feel like I didn't have a whole lot of input. I was just like engaged. I felt like one of the viewers. I was just like, Alex, senpai, teach me.
Sorry. Yeah, just trying to work within the time constraints. I know we've gotten a little off the rails in the past, but I didn't mean to steamroll you. I hope you didn't.
No. It was really good. You know.
Cool, but really no, it's my turn for thank yous. Thank you, Logan, for helping get this off the ground and running. Thank you, Kristen, for putting together our weekly blog post and providing all of the material for this podcast. And thank you, Danielle, again, for making this thing look so pretty.
Yeah, all the beautifulness of this production is really thanks to Danielle Jones.
And just to thank you, Mark Sliss in Michigan. Thank you for keeping me in the loop with what's going on there, and thank you for all of your efforts.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Thank you, everybody out there right now. Thank you, guys. I guess we'll just wrap this show up here with one last thank you to everybody. Be safe, everyone. Take care of each other. Be excellent to each other, and remember that we all together, we are CASAA. All right, guys. We will catch you guys next time. Take care.